So I've now gone and opened up the necessary ports on the firewall, and just as an FYI, in case you are doing this yourself without the assistance of a security professional, you want to make sure you just don't open up port 1433 on your firewall. You want to remap that port to a less commonly known port, because when people do try and do brute force attacks on your firewall, they do tend to scan for well-known ports like 1433, which is a SQL Server port. But of course, you've got strong passwords set up on your SQL Server database anyway, so that shouldn't be a problem, right? Anyway, moving along. So I've done that. So now I can go back in and let's go through the process again. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to choose Get Data. And what the system's then going to ask me is, where do I want to get the data from? Now, I didn't actually show you all the different options that were available here. I'm not going to go through them all one by one because obviously they're not all applicable for you as an SAP Business One user. But where this can be helpful is if you've got data in multiple locations and you want to create a mashup visualization of data, or you want to bring data from one source and match it based on some information in your SAP Business One database, and then visualize that data together. So these are all the different data source types that you've got, including, of course, good old Excel. You can pull data from a SharePoint folder. You can use SQL Server databases, which is what we're going to use. Certainly, I'm going to show you how to connect to that. And then we're going to take a look at SAP HANA as well. So whether you're using SAP Business One with SQL Server or with HANA, you can access your data. Now, you're going to see some things that are very, very different between the two, but we'll talk about that when we get in there. And then, of course, you've got your other Azure-based cloud storage locations. You've got the Power BI service, and remember, that's where I said that's where you've got your SQL Server data or your HANA data on running on-premise. Or on premises rather, and you just want to connect into that and have that shared seamlessly. So that's what that's there for. But then, of course, you've got all these other options, including the ability to connect to a common data service, and so on and so forth. So lots of different things here: MailChimp, Google Analytics, all kinds of things. So again, bear in mind that you have all of these choices, and those choices will continue to grow over time. All right, so anyway, we're going to go back here and we're going to say we're getting our data from our SQL Server database. And then it's going to ask you, all right, give me the connection parameters for the SQL Server database, as we said before. So I'm going to sbosql.smbsolutions.com.au, and I'm going to use my SBO demo US database. Now, remember, if you don't know the database, if you've got a couple of databases and you want to choose that later, you don't have to put the database name in there. Again, a quick reminder, two choices: importing the data or establishing a live link and using direct query. And then I'll say OK. Now it's going to ask me for my credentials by which it's going to control the access to the underlying SQL Server database. So if you've got mixed mode authentication, then you can either use a SQL Server username and password, or you can use a Windows username and password. So right now I'm logged in this session, which, by the way, I'm running inside a web browser. So again, using the web browser to access the full Windows desktop application using Ericom. And I am signed in as the administrator, and I know that the administrator has full rights to all the databases and all the tables and everything inside it. So in here, I'm going to say I'm going to use my current credentials. But what I can do is I can say use alternate credentials, in which case it's now going to give you the option to put in your SQL Server username and password. All right, so hopefully you've been set up with a username and password to access the database and the tables and views that you've been granted access to. Obviously, if you log on, if you've got the SA username and password, you've got access to everything. So, of course, if you do have that, you can log on as SA. But in this case, I'm just going to say use my current credentials. And then it's going to say, well, what level do you want to apply these credentials to? At the top level and everything underneath, or purely to this database only? I'm going to say at the top level and everything underneath, just in case I want to look at any of the other databases and pull data together. So now I hit connect, and you'll see it's establishing the connection through. Now it tries to create an encrypted connection first to the database, and if that fails, it'll then come back and ask you to set up an unencrypted connection. Now on a local area network, an unencrypted connection is fine. On a wide area network, then you obviously do want to try and make sure that you have set up encryption for your SQL Server. Setting that up, that's another topic for another day. But what you'll now see is I now have my navigator, and it's giving me basically access to all of the information that's inside SAP Business One. Now, you'll see that it actually starts off with all of these views. If you've been working with SAP Business One for a while, you'll know that SAP Business One uses a number of these different views for creating its own data and its own representations of data inside the system. Matter of fact, for those of you who remember Excel Reporter, a lot of Excel Reporter was built on views. So what is a view? Well, a view is basically a pre-existing SQL query. It's an easy way to look at it. So you've got all of these views here. So don't ignore these, because these could potentially make your life quite easy. So for example, you might have the doc item view, which is going to show you all of the items on all the sales documents as an example. So rather than you having to go and write your own queries, you can use some of these views yourself. Okay, so again, you've got all of these views here. And then as you scroll through, and you'll see these are listed, and it shows you the views. Now these BW users, or these objects here that are listed with the BW user at the start of them, again, these are some more views that were created, and I just can't quite remember. Yes, I can, sorry. And the name is the giveaway, BW user. So these are some views that were set up if you were utilizing previous versions of the SAP Business One integration for SAP NetWeaver, and you might have been using the Business Warehouse and pulling data out of that. So that's what these are, and that's why it's got that object name of BW user. All right, so again, same scenario, you can go and you can use some of these views. So I would encourage you, go and take a look at some of these, because again, same scenario, maybe you can save yourself a whole bunch of work in writing queries by looking at these as a starting point. And of course, you can open them up and just view the data that they return, or you can go in, if you've got access right into your SQL Server database, and actually take a look at the structure of those views. And then we get back to our traditional information, which is our traditional tables. All right, and you'll remember that there's a way of seeing all the tables and the fields in SAP Business One, and that's by viewing the system information and then hovering your mouse over a field on the screen that you're looking for. But then you've got your tables here. So now if you know the table name, of course you don't have to scroll through it. So for example, if you might be looking at the customer or the business partner master file, you'll know that's the OCRD table. All right, so you can just type it in there, OCRD. Then you can select the table. You'll see what it's doing is it's going to do a little evaluation, and it's just going to show you the first record that's in the system, just so you can say, hey, is that the information I was looking for? Does that look like that table has the information I want? And then you can say, yes, that does look correct. We've selected that table, but you can go in here, for example, and you can go and do a lookup, and you can see all of your tables again, or you can narrow that down and you can find another table. But look, let's just keep it simple for now, and let's just work with that one table. So I can go in here and I can say edit, or I can say load. Now if I say load, it's just going to pull that data in, it's going to grab that link, and I'm going to be ready to start building my visualization. But what I can do is I can click here on an edit, and what this is going to enable me to do, it's going to enable me to do some, for want of a better term, not in a nefarious way. When I say manipulation, I don't mean you can go in and change the data, but you can go and you can structure the data a little bit more effectively if you want to. You can rename some of the the columns or the field names. You can go in and you can remove certain fields. You can do all kinds of things here, and that's what you're getting when you choose to edit that. It's basically bringing you into the query editor. So right now, your query here would be, if I was to look at it from a SQL perspective, it will be select star from OCRD, basically select all. But you've got the ability now to go in and start doing some additional editing. All right, so you can do transforms, you can do all kinds of different things. And a transform is just where you change the data in some way. Maybe you've got a numeric field or an alphanumeric field that needs to be a numeric field, or maybe you've got a string field and you only want to get the first 3 letters of the string field. That's what transforms do. They enable you to, to basically change that or transform, change. They enable you to change the data so it's more usable for you. All right. And so then once you've got that done, you can then close that and apply it. I'm going to say close and apply, and you'll see that's made very little difference. As a matter of fact, it should have made no difference. But because it has detected I've gone in and said apply, it's going in and it's basically reapplying that query for me. And now you'll see I'm back into my cockpit or my canvas, call it what you will, and I've now got the information that I can start working with. So here's my table, it's my OCRD table, and now I've got all of the fields. So what you basically now need to do is start building your visualizations. So let's say, for example, I just want to see a visualization that shows me my business partners that are customers, and I want to see the outstanding balances for all of my business partners. All right, and then I want to do some work to narrow that down. So what fields do I want to select? Well, I'll want to select the card code because I'll probably want the business partner's account code. So I've selected that, and that automatically puts that over here, and it's putting it into a grid view first and foremost. So the way I like to do things is I like to select my data and then apply a visualization. But you can start with a visualization and then start building the data. But when you're learning, it's not a bad idea to go through this way, because you can make sure you've got your data correct first and then come in and start playing around with the visualizations. So then I've got my card code, and then, for example, I might know that I also want my card name. So I can start typing that in, and you'll see it narrows it down. So I've got card F name, card type, card valid, because I am going to want the card type as well, but I don't want to pull the card type in to my visualization, but I do want a filter on it. So I'm going to now select my card name, and you'll see, there you go, it's now added my, my business partner name into my visualization. So what else do I want? Well, I know I want some information about the balance, but what's the balance field called? Well, I know that's got BAL in there somewhere, so I can just start typing BAL. And you'll see now it's narrowing down, and it's showing me all the data fields that have the word, have those 3 letters BAL in it. So I can see the balance in the foreign currency, the balance in the system currency, as well as these other balances like the order balance, the orders balance. So I could say, for example, I could say, you know what, I want to see the account balance, and I'm selecting that. And so now you've got the account balance that's stored inside SAP Business One. And then, you know what, if I'm going to use this data to make some decisions, maybe I'm going to use this to see who are my recalcitrant debtors and I want to go chasing them. I might also want to see the orders balance. So, those customers who've got big outstanding orders, I might want to see those as well. So I can select that, and now it's added that for me as well. But of course, you'll see this field is not big enough, so I can just go across here and I can use these controls just to expand that data out. So, important point to note, you've got financial and non-financial information. So you've got numeric information and non-numeric information that's going to impact on the kinds of visualizations, for example, that you can do. So there is a visualization here, for example, if I just wanted to see my total outstanding debtors balance, all right, just as a single number. So I can go over here and I can choose the visualization in here that just represents that individual number. And you can see by hovering over each one of these visualizations, it's going to tell me what each one of those visualizations are. So I can get up to here and you'll see here is a numeric one. So it's just a card. So if I say, look, I want to make that a card, then it's going in and it's saying, all right, this is $141 million and that's the balance. All right, so because it's a card and it can only show one value, you'll see what it's done is it's automatically removed the orders balance. If I try and select a second value into that visualization, it's not going to allow me to do it, but I can untick the balance and just make that the orders balance. All right, so now what that's done is that has gone and it's automatically made that a graph for me, but I can simply click on here and turn that back into a number. So I've got $5.43 million in orders. So this is where the power of these visualization tools start to come in. If you want to build a dashboard for people outside your SAP Business One so that they can view this information, it becomes very, very easy to do this. So let's say I'm going to leave that on there for the sake of the exercise. So I've got my $5.43 million. That's my outstanding order balance. Now I can come in here and I can start to edit this. So I might want it to say something other than order balance. All right, I might want that to have a more meaningful name. So I can do that if I want to. Now, I can also apply all kinds of filters as well. So if I want to, I can apply filters to it based on the customer name or based on the dates or whatever the case may be. Now Power BI makes it really, really easy for you to do that. I'm going to show you that in a second using a tool called the slicer. But I've got my orders balance. Now I want to add another one. So I just click anywhere off that control there. And then I come back across here and I now say, well, I want my balance. Now it's going to pop that on there as well. I want that as a number as well. So I just change that to a number. So now I've got my orders balance and I've got my debtors balance. And then what else do I want to see? Maybe, well, actually that'll do for now. But now I want to go back in and I want to build what's called a slicer. So if I go back here and I might want to, for example, I might want to be able to click on a customer or a group of customers and only have these values reflect the customer that I've chosen. So how would I do that? I hear you ask. Well, very, very simply, make sure neither one of these is highlighted, and then you'll grab your card code again, and then you will grab your card name. And again, by now you're getting pretty familiar with your data, so you can just go in there and there it is, card name, and you've now got that selected. So you've now got that information. So what you can do is you can go here now and you can make this a slicer. So all you have to do is just simply click on here, and I've turned this into a slicer now, but you might be thinking, hang on, where's the card name gone? Why isn't the card name showing up? And you say, well, I just want to select the card name. Why is that not allowing me to do that? Well, remember, you've still got the card code selected. We've also got a filter on here. So let's get rid of the filter. Let's come back to our view. Give that a couple of seconds for it to refresh. There it is. And now we can get rid of our card code. Okay, and now we can go and just say, look, I just want that to be the card name. And now I can select card name. So now what you'll see at the moment, this slicer has basically got everybody selected. So these dollar values, and this is the beauty of this, right? You didn't have to do anything to link all of these together. In years past, there would have been a whole bunch of, you know, poking around, maybe writing code, doing all kinds of different things to try and join all these together. I remember first trying to build SharePoint dashboards. Man, what a nightmare with when these were things called web parts. But anyway, now what you can do is you can just say, all right, what's the balance for, I don't know, MaxiTech? So then you click on MaxiTech and you'll now see all the others are deselected and only MaxiTech is selected. So what's the balance if I want MaxiTech and, I don't know, microchips? So again, you can hold down your control key and you can select MaxiTech and microchips. So that's the whole idea behind the slicer. It now gives you the ability to do this kind of really nice filtering. Now I'm still in design mode. The power of this really becomes helpful when you've been given the task of building these dashboards for other people and then they're going to want to basically access them. All right, so it kind of becomes a lot easier than for everybody to access the information that you are creating. All right, so again, you can go in here and you have got the ability to be able to do additional things. So for example, you can go in here and you can say show data, and it will now drill me down and it'll show me all the underlying data that's sitting underneath that particular slicer. And you can even export the data, or you can set what's called a spotlight. And what the spotlight does is it enables you to highlight a particular data visualization on this page. So you've got all that information. So now bear in mind that everything else that you start adding onto here is also going to, that comes from that table, is also going to be reflected out and also going to be impacted by that slicer. So if you go in here and you want to view that same information now, let's say the orders balance as a graph, and maybe you want to see your top 10. So what you could do is you could go in here and you could say, all right, and now here's a hint, here's your field name. So you can go in here and say, all right, I've got orders bal. So I want to select that field. And then I want to also select the card name. Now remember, our visualization is still selected over here. So whatever I do here, it's automatically going to reflect over here. So then by card name, and you'll see it's now automatically said, aha, there's two values here. So now I need to show that effectively. So I've got my card name. So now I've got those two values. I can go in and I can say, all right, now I want to start tidying this up a little bit. So you could go in here and you could say, you know what, let's just graph Earthshaker Corporation. So that's just going to give you a single view, right? So there it is. It's highlighting that value for Earthshaker. But then you can go down here and you can click on that and it'll actually then reselect all the values. But now I can say, you know what, I actually want to see that as a pie chart. So again, all you do is you click up here on pie chart and it now shows it to you as a pie chart. Now you want to narrow that down a little bit so you can start adding filters. All right, so you've got these filters here, so you can say orders balance, you find that, and you can say, all right, show me where the value is less than, is greater than. So I only want to see all of those customers, for example, whose account balance or whose orders balance is greater than, I don't know, let's say greater than $50,000, 51, 2, 3. And then I can say apply filter. And so that's now what I'm seeing. I'm now getting to see all of those records where the orders balance is greater than $50,000. Or I could say, let's make it $500,000 and apply that filter. And you'll see it narrows it down even further. So then you've got the ability to keep going and creating as many of these visualizations as you want on a page. But here's the thing. Oftentimes, when you're creating these dashboards, you go in here Um, you've got your dashboard. You can come in here and you can start working with that data, and you can go in and you can start putting additional information. You can change the names of these visualizations, whatever the case may be.